I wore my COVID vaccination today, so I can wear a mask if anybody's concerned. Doesn't understand. I'm kind of all over the place in my writing. So I grew up moving. So my father worked for IBM and IBM World Trade, which people who work for IBM often joke that it means I've been moved. So we moved about every year and a half, sometimes in the middle of a school year. And so there are some pluses and some minuses to that. But I ended up with the Wanderlust myself, but it shows up more in my writing. And so I have, and I'll have to read from my list here, so I've got poetry and prose from Finland, Xinjiang, ancient Nigeria, England, Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, a multiverse in some places that no longer exist, and also dreams too, especially in my poems. No matter where, my prose is based on like the foundation of place, and so a lot of authors sort of take on the area from which they come, a certain locality or region, and it shows in their writing. And but mine is more from research and reading, sometimes from places I've been to, or inspired by people I've known. So I've used satellite imaging, travel journals, and tend to do a fair amount of background reading. So unlike my two friends here, I'm more in the adult literature genres. So I have, well, I'll just start with, I guess, so if you ask what is place and setting, and found a good definition was on the internet on Electric Magazine. It's geographically speaking, places, region, or area, location, locale, or site considered with reference to the events that occur there, prevalent conditions, tendencies, ideas, and other influential factors. And it's a particular portion of space, or space in general, when I find here in the United States. Now, my next novel was The Hole in the Bone, and this is an archaeological adventure, historical fantasy, and it's got two worlds in it. So there's a modern world and ancient Xinjiang, 3,800 years ago. And in order to create this place, I talked to my son, Justin, who's he's an art mover, an art handler, and has worked in a lot of museums. And he gave me some of the ins and outs of the locks used, for the art, and the fingerprint locks, and security, how those things worked. And he set me straight when I had in one scene somebody just lifting the lid off of a mummy, and by himself. And he said those Pete's actually set up mummy exhibits. He said, no, you need two people to do that. So little things like that to create a sense of reality. And I also joined a website called Sarah Parsak's Global Explorer. She's an archaeologist who's discovered many underground cities and tombs using satellite imaging. And she has thousands of satellite tiles that show pictures of looting holes all over the earth. And so her objective was to engage the public in helping to locate what looked like looting holes. And so so I joined, and I was on that for a while. Picked up some ideas about looting and all that. Ended up in the book. So, and I also, to write it, I used travel guides and newspapers, some books by Thor Heyerdahl and Sven Hayden. And so, I've never been there, but someone from Xinjiang, she's a Uyghur, she said it felt like home reading it. So I was pretty happy when she said that. And let's see, I'll read an excerpt from Poland about it. And so, in the story, the hero Nick, who might also be considered an anti-hero, but so he gets a job with the Museum of Ürümqi. A Chinese friend hires him, and he leads an expedition into the Taklamakan Desert. And when he first arrives in Ürümqi, and he stays at a hotel, he gets a little feel for modern Ürümqi. After lying on the bed for half an hour, Nick still couldn't fall asleep and took the elevator to the lobby. The concierge told him the street market was within walking distance. He strolled down Jifang Nanlu, which opened onto the Erdeo market, a traditional Uyghur market with vendors of many ethnicities, goods, and dishes. The sound of people speaking in different tongues created an otherworldly cacophony as each merchant extolled the virtues of their wares. Pakistani traders ran from stall to stall yelling and making deals. Carpet sellers hung brightly colored heath-and wool rugs and felt mats. Uyghur bootmakers, animal skin traders, and black market money changers were all at work. The air was rich with the scent of cumin, coriander, sweet clove, caraway fennel, and even Queen Anne's lace. So as the story progresses, and Nick leads an expedition out into the desert, and he accidentally falls into the tomb of this mummy that he's looking for, called the Shershin Man. And he has a near-death experience and goes into a dream, and it's a trip to ancient Xinjiang of 3,800 years ago. This is from a chapter called Sorcerer. He descended in a roller coaster plunge that wouldn't let go of his stomach. He expected to hit the bottom momentarily, but a flash of light exploded about him and surrounded him in a brilliant haze. Suddenly, the tall man stood before him, holding out his hand. In it was a small, flat bone with a hole, like in his dream. "What are you?" asked Nick. "We are one and the same," he replied. "I don't know what you mean. One and the same, just in different sheets. I am Tokma. You are Tokma. Sheets? You and I share the same soul, but there can only be one covering at a time. The answers are on the other side." He held the bone in front of Nick's eyes, looked through the hole, and entered. On the other side of the opening was absolute nothingness, either dark, light, up, down, or sideways, an infinity of possibilities that was not any one thing, but everything. In this void of existence was a chaotic miracle of expanding energy, where shapes began to form, congealing and sharpening into striking clarity. He found himself standing on the shore of a sparkling lake surrounded by green fields, which commingled with desert in the distance. A waterfall cascaded down the rocky heights of the towering Kunlun Mountains to form the Shamadu River, flowing through the desert into the lake. In its still waters, he saw his reflection, a tall man wearing a pointed, narrow-brimmed hat that dipped forward at the top, making him look like a sorcerer. And so I have more descriptions of his clothing, and that came from a book called The Tarim Basin Mummies by Elizabeth Barber. And she also describes the tomb and clothing these ancient people wore who were buried out on the edge of the desert. So I also write short stories.